Oh yeah, postpartum in Mosque to know.
Right. Okay. So let's start. Welcome everyone to the Camelford Court Roof Improvement Resident Consultation. So are we expecting more people to join? Linda, is everyone here or?
I can't say definitively.
Okay.
I'm hoping one or two other people will come on.
Okay, so I'll just carry on then. So this meeting will be recorded so we can share it on the W11 app. This is so people who couldn't make it can view the presentation afterwards. So Linda, can you press record, please?
Yeah, it's done.
Right. Thanks, Linda. So by way of housekeeping, if people can mute themselves, if they're not contributing, so we can all hear each other. So feel free to put your questions in the chat. We'll have a Q&A session afterwards where you'll have the opportunity to ask questions and share your views and thoughts. My name is Bimi Shakoni. I'm the refurbishment project manager at Lancaster West. I don't think I've met everyone yet, but hopefully we will meet in person at some point. Joining us today are other members of the Lancaster West team and Penoyre Prasad, PMP, the architect, working on the refurbishment of your block, which includes the roof improvement works. So the agenda for today, first we'll have a short introduction from James Caspel, then PMP will talk to us through, they'll talk through the performance issues with the existing roof, as well as the options for improvement. And after that, there will be an opportunity to ask PMP any questions and share your views. You can also put your questions in the chat, as I said earlier. So I'm going to hand over to James Caspel.
Thanks, Bumi. Good evening, everybody. My name is James Caspel. I'm the Neighbourhood Director. I can see some familiar names have joined us and some new names as well who I haven't met. Today's a really exciting landmark for the refurbishment of our estate, and that's for two reasons. The first reason is it's the first opportunity we've had to look at not just the internal refurbishment programme, which we are delivering in almost every block, but also our opportunity to look at the main refurbishments, the refurbishment of the actual buildings that you live in, the outside refurbishment, if you like. The second reason this is really exciting is we've fortunately been successful in putting a grant bid into the government, and that secured £103,000 worth of funding specifically for Camelford Court and specifically for your roof. The terms of what we're going to be looking at tonight mean that we wouldn't need to recharge leaseholders. So there's a real opportunity here for a win-win where tenants and leaseholders benefit in a number of ways. So we're going to hear tonight from Annalisa and the team in terms of the different options available. But the good news is those options are such that the sky's the limit, essentially, and that we're able to afford, if you like, the Rolls-Royce option, which is not just a roof that will improve the energy performance of your homes and reduce your bills, but also looking at green roofs, which will improve the aesthetic, certainly of your neighbours and provide some other benefits. And perhaps even more interestingly, looking at solar panels as well to generate electricity for your block or the near area, or even potentially your homes. So I hope today is really informative and interesting, and no doubt you will engage with us. As I say, this is something which is a milestone for the refurbishment, and it's an opportunity for you to ask any questions really that might spring up now or in the next couple of weeks, and Linda and the team will be available to answer any questions. So without further ado, I'll hand back to Bumi, who will introduce, no doubt, Annalisa.
Okay, so yes, Annalisa is is an architect from Penoyre Prasad. So she's going to talk us through the different options. Annalisa, do you want to start?
Yeah.
Annalisa.
Hello. So hi everyone. I'm Annalisa. I'm an associate at Penoyre Prasad Architects, and really happy to be here with you all today. and we're working on the refurbishment of the east side of the Lancaster West Estate, which of course includes Camelford Walk, but also Camelford Court, Clarendon Walk and Talbot Walk. As a practice, we've been involved in the estate for a few years now. We were involved in the Ideas Days back in 2018. So two of you, we may have had the chance to meet then. Thank you very much for coming tonight. We're going to be focusing, as James said, on the roof improvement works to Camelford Court. I'm just going to start off with a quick introduction, and I'm going to hand over to Emily and our team, who will review the options for the roof improvement work with you. And we're going to end with Simon from our team just to talk through the surveys. So just to let you know who we are, as unfortunately we can't meet in person today. So as I mentioned, Emily Pang, she's the project architect, and I'll be handing over to her in a minute. And Simon Dove is here today as well as our technical lead, as well as George Williams, an architectural assistant in our team. And we're also joined with our structural engineers. So Ian and Jenny are here today and be able to answer any questions that you have on the roof improvement works. So why are we meeting today? So as James mentioned, Lancaster West Neighbourhood Team have now secured funding through the Green Homes Grant to fund the start on the roof improvement works as the first kind of stage of the estate-wide refurbishment, looking at the external refurbishment of the buildings. And as a team, we've now looked into all the options available for the roof improvement works, and we'd like to see what you think, really. So why do we need to do this work? So unfortunately, Camelford Court actually has the poorest energy performance of all the buildings on the estate, which is why we started here and why we achieved the Green Homes Grant funding. So on the current roof, there is not really enough insulation within the existing roof, which means there's a lot of wasted heat, and that causes higher bills for residents who live in the buildings. We've undertaken a roof survey, and the outcome of this roof survey, you can see some of the images to the right of this slide. We've found a few defects in the roof that need to be identified, and as well as the poor levels of insulation in the roof, and that is why we need to address these through the roof improvement works. So in terms of the benefits to you as residents, as well as getting a new roof, the main kind of benefit to that is that the energy will be kept inside your home, and that will help to reduce any wasted energy and therefore reduce energy bills. The roof improvement works are really the first step in the refurbishment of the buildings, and the works will be able to contribute to the aspiration for the wider estate to be net zero carbon by 2030 by having a really high level of energy performance. So in kind of summary for the residents, the benefits are really lower energy bills, better thermal performance, and having a lower carbon footprint, as well as being able to achieve a higher construction quality than we have at the moment in the buildings. So in terms of our objectives for the project, obviously the number one objective is to reduce heat loss from the building. We would like to add new mineral wool insulation, which is A1 non-combustible, as well as adding a new weatherproof roof covering to the roof. We'd like to improve the visual appearance of the roof from the neighbouring homes, including from Camelford Walk. And we'd also like to improve the potential to increase biodiversity through looking at an option to have a green roof. And this also helps to address air pollution. We'd also like to explore the opportunity to generate electricity for the block. And this will also help to reduce residents' bills further if we are able to introduce solar panels. There will always be some heat loss from the buildings, but our target for this project would be to reduce the overall heat loss down to a third of what it is currently. So in terms of a timeline for this project, where we are at the moment is in the pink circle. So this is our first resident engagement event on the project. There will be a resident vote following this meeting, which the Lancaster West Neighbourhood Team will explain further at the end of the session. Over the next few weeks, we'll need to undertake a structural survey, which Simon will explain in a bit of detail in a minute. Following the outcome of the resident vote that we'll be having, and also the results that we receive in the structural survey, we'll be able to move on to finalise the design for the roof. And we're hoping to be able to start construction on the roof towards the end of February. The works themselves would take around 2 months to complete, and our current target for the works to be completed would be the end of March this year. There will need to be some further upgrade to the building after the roof is completed, which will be part of the wider estate-wide refurbishment. And this will include, for example, installing new windows to the blocks and other refurbishment measures that we will discuss at a later date. So in terms of the options, I'm now going to hand you over to Emily to talk you through the 4 options we're going to discuss today.
Great, thanks Annalisa. Hi everyone. So the first option we have is a warm roof. This is a roof upgrade with new insulation and new waterproofing covering to stop wasting heat through the roof. The level of insulation to the roof will exceed the current standards, and it will ensure the building will be fit for future. It will also help to meet the Lancaster West Neighbourhood Team sustainability ambitions for the estate to be net zero carbon by 2030. Visually, the new roof construction will be similar to what was there already, but with any existing defects removed. So as you can see here, the image on the left, the existing roof has 10 centimetres of insulation, and then to the right is the proposed roof, which has around 37 centimetres of insulation, included an insulated upstand. So just to make clear, all insulation proposed will be A1 rated and is non-combustible. The second option we have looked at is for a green roof. This is visually more attractive and will support biodiversity with new plants or grass on the roof of the building. This can be planted as a wildflower meadow, which is similar to the visuals that you can see at the bottom of the slide. And as well as looking at more attractive for anyone who can see the roof from above, the green roofs will also help to further reduce heat loss because it holds onto the heat a little better. And it provides a degree of sound insulation as well. So with the green roof, you can see it's got the same build up as the warm roof. So we've still got the 30 centimetre of insulation with the heated upstand, well, the insulated upstand. And the only difference really is that you have the layer of planting on top. It's just one thing to note that until we complete the structural survey, we won't know for sure if the existing buildings will be able to support the weight of the green roof. So it's very important that we can carry out a structural survey just to make sure it's still viable. Next slide. So in option 3, we are looking at introducing solar panels to the roof. So this can either sit directly on top of a warm roof, and the reason for solar panels is that it's a clean source of energy to power homes, and it will help us move towards a net zero carbon future. Solar panels on the roof would help also to reduce energy bills. It could potentially provide 50% of a typical flat's annual energy consumption. So yes, lowering the bills residents would have to pay. So you can see, again, it's the same build out of the 37 centimetre insulation and the insulated upstand, and the only difference is the solar panels would sit directly on top. And then for the final option, it's a hybrid of the green roof with solar panels. So you get all the positives of the green roof and the solar panels together, sort of reducing bills, so you get the added heat, sort of reduction of the green roof, and then the solar energy to reduce the bills. In this option, you won't have quite as much green because some of it will be covered by the PVs, but there will still be planting generally. So as you can see from the section, it's a combination of all sort of what we saw previously. So you have the 37 centimetres of insulation, the green roof, and then the PV panels on top.
Just to hand over to Simon. Simon, are you there to explain the next slides?
Yes, I'm here. The only snag is I can't actually see the slides, unfortunately. The one I can see currently is option 01. I think I've got a bit of a lag with my device. It's now up. That's fine. I can see it now. It's saying replace the handrails. So this is a proposal that's been put forward by BKC, which is useful to take away the handrails, which will improve the views of the roof. And the way this is done, because the handrails are there for safety of inspections, is to replace that system with having a cable system, which is a fall arrest system. So people on the roof have a cable that stops them falling off. We would still need to have this system for some way of access to check rainwater outlets and also to maintain anything with the ceiling roof or the solar panels. But it's a very standard approach. Subject to the structural survey, this would be straightforward to fit. And go on to the next slide. So what we need to do is get some structural survey information just to be sure that the roof capacity is there and any modifications we might need to do. So what we're looking for is we need one more person ideally to help us by allowing access to a room. I think it's probably for a day's work to open up the roof and inspect some of the joists and then to make good, put the plasterboard back, and it would eventually be as if nothing had happened in that room. So that would be very useful if there's one more person we can find in this consultation process to advise us on that, if they're able to help. We've got one person already who's come forward. So the next stage really is to go through thinking back what we've shown you. Any questions that we've got? First of all, it'd be very useful to get an overview from everybody here who's come to comment, what you think of the proposals and any questions you've got for us about how those works would be implemented. Let us know if you've got any concerns. And yeah, if you know anybody or you yourself would be able to assist with allowing a surveyor to do the structural survey. So perhaps we should go back to the beginning. Any thoughts on the proposal so far?
Oh, it's quiet. Any questions, comments?
Don't forget to take yourself off mute if you're on mute.
Robert to come in. You said in the chat, Robert, that you think this would be popular. Perhaps you want to just elaborate a bit on that?
Linda?
Yeah, I really love the green roof with the solar panels. Will the solar panels damage the green roof in any way, or is it does it just fit around the panels?
They work together really. In some ways, the figures you get from the use of the PVs and solar panels, they actually perform slightly better by having the green roof there. It helps something to do with about the temperature and how the optimum temperature for the PVs to work. So they'll be slightly less visible, but the green roof, you like, occupies the space under the solar panels. So in terms of the biodiversity and all the other benefits you get from the green roof, that would still be going on. I saw there was a question there from Michelle, which was about if it was a green roof hybrid, how is it maintained? That would be part of the estate-wide maintenance. So it's not like a resident's job to deal with it, but there would be a yearly maintenance really, which is just to check that nothing is growing on the roof that shouldn't be there, and to make sure the PVs are suitably clean. I'm not sure exactly how often the PVs need to be checked. It probably isn't even as frequent as that, but there'd be certainly one visit a year just to check the rainwater pipes and the green roof process. But nobody needs to cut the lawn or anything like that. That's not part of the plan. It's just really just a visual inspection.
Desmond.
Hi, thanks, Wimmy, and thanks for the presentation. Really useful. My query is, given the options, my understanding, and it might be useful just to confirm that, is as a minimum, the proposal would be to do the warm roof regardless. So the question then is, if our residents choose any of the other options, be it a hybrid of the green roof or panels or one or the other, how much more does that add in terms of the work timeline? And then just, I don't know if someone's in the room that's able just to say a little bit about the installation phase. So will there be scaffolding around the building? So do residents need to be mindful in terms of security? So just so they have that awareness.
Yeah, at the moment, in terms of, let's take your second question first. In terms of the requirements for access, we've gone out to tender to 4 contractors to find out what their prices would be in their proposals. So they would have potentially different ways of approaching this in terms of access. So we don't at this stage know all the details of how much scaffolding is needed. One indication is it's likely we would have a sort of bridge scaffold between the two parts of the block so that there's continuity, and be trying to set up some kind of a staircase rather than ladders. So we've got a simple point of access. But how the materials are brought onto the roof, it may vary. So at this stage, we can't say exactly how to operate. But what we would do when we get the tenders back and we're close to the point of the work starting, we would have meetings set up so that the contractor would then explain how they're going to go about the work, so everybody's aware. There'd be contact details for the contractor and so on. So all those risks would need to be managed and understood, but I think that would come a bit later on. In terms of the program, I think maybe I better hand back to Annalisa just to clarify the program in terms of if we add PVs and add the CDM system. Annalisa, can you clarify that?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, no, it would have some program implications. I can't say today exactly how long that would be, I'm afraid. So once we have a contractor on board, we'll be able to clarify that one.
Thanks, Annalisa. David Ward.
Hi there. Like Linda, I love the green roof with the solar panels. I've seen them elsewhere. I think they work really well. Two questions I have. One, how will that impact the heat in the houses? Is it going to kind of go the other way and overheat the houses because they're nice and insulated? And number two, the greenery that will be on the top, are there any risks of it drying out if we have a particularly hot summer and potentially becoming tinder? If somebody from one of the flats above flicks a cigarette onto that roof, is it going to set the roof alight? Well, at least I know the insulation is going to be A1 non-combustible, but the plants won't be.
I think it's a good concern to raise, and it's certainly something we should bear in mind. There is a risk of materials drying out, and so in the design of the green roof, the way the designs have to be done now is to have a fire break built in, so you have a kind of an incombustible sections of pebbles, effectively, which would stop any transmission across a certain area, so you break the chance of fire spread. In terms of how the likelihood of that would work, I think we'd also take perhaps some references back to other estates where similar problems have been faced, and we can certainly check if there's any data about risks experienced to date. But that's not our sense so far, has not been that that's been a particular hazard. But you're quite right to point this out, and we will obviously just come back to you with a bit more information from the green roof system, so we can get some figures on that. But as I say, that there is the design itself is designed to stop fire spread.
Thanks.
Linda.
So I just think there was another part to that question at the beginning.
Sorry, yeah,
I think
overheating, risk of overheating, yeah. And Lisa, sorry, perhaps you should say, but my sense is you would just need to use less heat. You'll have some control over your heating system in the full refurbishment, so that you wouldn't be wasting heat by opening windows. You would have some ways of controlling the amount of heat that's actually required.
Sorry, I was actually thinking a bit about summer when you're not actually using heat. Is it going to become a heat trap?
No, it'd probably do the opposite. It would help reflect the heat even more. So the insulation does, to a degree, reduce the amount of heat that comes into the house or to the flat, plus the turf system, or the sedum system rather, with a certain amount of soil buildup, that actually helps cool things a little bit further. And there's interesting things that happen if you've got some moisture, if there's been rainwater, that gives you a certain amount of evaporative cooling, which can help a little bit. I don't think there's a lot of science proving exactly what the cooling level will be, but that's one of the reasons why the PVs with the sedum roof is a popular choice, because it does actually bring the temperature down a little and it keeps the PVs at optimum temperature.
Thank you.
Thanks, David. Linda?
I have two questions. The first is the turf laid flowered? Because you said something about seeded. So is it laid and it has to grow? And if so, how long does it take before it becomes this beautiful, wonderful wildflower meadow system? And the other one is, seeing as it is flowers and grass, will it attract wildlife? And if so, what type?
Okay. At least you may, and Emily, you may have more information on the actual product systems used. But on my experience of doing the green roofs on the projects I've done, it's been less grass on the whole, the ones we've done, which is a relatively not too thick a build-up, but you can have some wildflower mix in there. But it's often more of a sedum type system, which is a kind of thicker leafed plant, which traps moisture inside the plant, so that you get some small flowers, I think, with those, but there's maybe not necessarily going to be a full meadow style, poppies and all those other colours. Depends a lot on the species we pick. In terms of the wildlife you might potentially get, is your concern about would they start trying to climb into your house? Is that part of the thinking? Because you may get things like spiders and grasshoppers and all sorts of things that might appear there, but it's unlikely that they're going to be any more kind of complicated in terms of getting into your house. But is that your thinking? Is that what your question
To
was
be
about?
honest, it was my thinking. I was just wondering.
Yeah. I don't think from the experience we've got using them before, that's necessarily caused any concerns before. But again, we need to find out a bit more and clarify your query.
Okay, so Robert's just put a comment in the chat. We have a small sedum roof on the tea garden and it's working really well. That's really good. And yes, which can be, okay, yeah. Do we have any more questions?
Hi, hello.
Hi, Ian.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Robert. Yeah, yes, I just said that in the tea garden, there's a small sedum roof. If we're going to engage with residents and sell this idea, and I love this idea, and one of the first things I do when I go into the tea garden, it's on top of the shed, I look at it and it's really looking healthy. I'm leaving it alone. We give it a bit of seaweed feed once in a while. Perhaps it would it be an idea to show it more to the residents? I don't know, some sort of link between what you're doing so people can see what it looks like. We have one in situ, so would that be, should I send you pictures or?
Sounds very useful.
Does that make sense? Sorry, I'll leave it there. I'll leave it. Yeah, so that's it really. We've got a small one and it's lovely. And maybe James can send you a picture. I'll send you some pictures of it.
Yeah, Robert, you can send it to me or James and we'll forward it to PNP.
Yeah, it was made by Green Roofs Direct. It's outside Green Roofs Direct in Northern Ireland, and I mean, people love it. And it's hardly needed any work at all. And
that's good. That sounds like a very successful one. That's good to hear. I think the only bit we sometimes get with planners, they pick specific species because there's often an ecological statement in the area about what is seen as the most useful plants to sort of add and support particular types of wildlife. So that's useful to know what's been working on your roof, because that might well apply here.
Great, thanks, Robert. Rebecca?
Hi, I just wanted to ask about the opposite to David Ward about dry summers is wet weather and, water retention and possibilities of damage and maintenance and things.
The way the sedum system works is you get the sedum is laid on a kind of sort of matrix for it to grow. It depends a bit on what system we pick, but that's all laid on top of a kind of drainage board, which depends which one again you pick, but between 20 to 40 mil of free space. So it's almost designed to catch the water a little bit in the summer, to help support the plants, keep them going through dry patches, but also provides a very efficient area for drainage. So the intention is water comes off the roof relatively quickly when it gets through the substrate which is used for growing. There's a little benefit in a way for the area in that it slows down the rate of water coming off. So it helps in a way stopping surges of water going into the drainage system. Just like a slow release of water. The water will come off though, and if there's a big deluge, it can then pass through the substrate into this drainage board and then get straight into the downpipes and away from the roof. So the system basically shouldn't prevent water drainage and it shouldn't cause problems. And the felt roof system is designed to cope with it being kept saturated and also to deal with any roots. So it's got kind of anti-root measures in it as well.
Great, thanks. Ian, is that an old end?
Hi, hi, Bobby. I was just going to say, hi everyone. I'm a structural engineer, and I've been helping Penoyre Prasad on the project. I had a very small extension to do, and I put a green roof on it because I thought, well, you know, I do this as part of my job. I need to make sure it works. So I did it at home, and I've got the little green roof, and what it does, it attracts butterflies and bees, and the occasional bird comes and sits in it, and it's very lovely. And I've got an open window next to my daughter's bedroom, and it's not an issue. We don't have spiders crawling in and that kind of thing. It's just a pleasant and lovely experience. And just in the way that the green roof system is laid, it's laid directly on top of the waterproofing system. So on my particular roof, if I wanted to, I could just lift the whole thing off, and you've still got a waterproof roof. It's not like it's drilled and fixed and somehow penetrating through your water resisting system you have on the roof. It's just loose laid on the top of it. So your waterproofing system is effectively independent of the green element on top of it. And so they are separated.
Okay, I believe so Michelle has just put a comment in the chat. Hopefully it doesn't attract pigeons. Annalisa, do you have any comments on that?
I hope it doesn't attract pigeons too. Yeah, I don't know if it would or not. That's a very good point, actually. I'll have to think about that one. Simon, have you had any experience of that before?
I'm not particularly aware of pigeons. I think you will get birds, though, as Ian's saying, and I think it's really about the balance of forces up there in terms of what's going on for any wildlife to come and visit. I don't think pigeons tend to nest on sedum, so I don't think they're going to roost there. I think they like different kinds of places, kind of more nesting under bridges and so on. They need shelter, so I don't think it'd be a long-term occupation for a pigeon to hang out on the roof. But yeah, birds will fly, come and go, and hopefully, as people have been saying a lot in the lockdown, that's one of the things people have been doing more, bird spotting. Hopefully, it'll be more interesting things than just pigeons, and you may get other sort of mixes of birds arriving with a bit of luck, drawn to the roof.
Great, Rebecca.
That was an old hand, but I was just going to say I can see some like Camelford Court honey or something like that coming.
Des?
Hi, thanks, Gummy. Just picking up a bit of an observation that Simon very briefly touched on, and I don't know if it's an aspect or an implication or not. So in terms of the roof and particularly solar panels or anything like that, would there be any reference to planning applications by doing any additional work like that? It's just a query.
Maybe I better check with Annalisa on that, because you've been talking more with the planners than I have on this.
Yeah, it's a very good question. We are submitting a planning application. We will need to do that as part of the works, and we will allow, at the moment in the planning application, we've allowed for all three options. So there could be whatever option the residents want to go forward with is included in the planning application.
Thanks, Annalisa. Caroline, you have a question? Oh. So Caroline's question is, what effect will the roof have on properties with skylights?
We would need to renew the skylights as part of that work, because we're going to be raising up the insulation and putting the roof covering and so on top. So part of the work would be a new skylight. I think we haven't maybe worked out what that new skylight type might be. Caroline, maybe you could say, because I don't know the project that well, do your skylights open and are they secure? Or are they just for daylighting?
She said she's never opened them.
Okay. We would do a bit more of a review. We're actually due to visit site next week, so we can maybe inspect the roof lights a bit more detail. But there would be a replacement, I think, and that would also be part of the energy strategy. Correct me if I'm wrong, Annalisa, but I think that would be the idea. We would improve their performance so they'd contribute to keeping the heat into the property.
Exactly, yeah. So we're going to be replacing the roof lights. We won't be removing any existing roof lights as part of the works.
Great, thanks. James?
Thanks, Boomy. So I was just going to say, and I'm going to post the when we launched the Tea Garden green roof on Instagram. Although we're here obviously to talk primarily around Camelford Court, we did have one resident in Camelford Walk actually say it would be great if the roof of Camelford Court, which they look down upon, and I think that was brought up earlier, if that could be a green roof. So this is one of the reasons, other than the energy performance, that we're looking at this. And obviously, given where it is in the estate, it's an opportunity to make a real sort of statement, really, as well. And hopefully, given residents in Camelford Walk would see what's going on, this is something we would be looking potentially to roll out to other blocks. I know we've got some residents here from other blocks, so just to sort of say that this isn't the only opportunity. The other thing I just wanted to say in terms of that combination option, if we want the Rolls-Royce option of the green roof and the PV, without getting too overly complicated, where we have our first air source heat pump working now at Verity Close, our first low energy home for Lancaster West, and there's PV we'll be able to see on the roof there, and that PV is generating electricity for the air source heat pump. So there's a real good opportunity here, and obviously what we want to do is minimise having to do something like put scaffolding up twice. So I just wanted to sort of put that on the agenda, really, in terms of if we were to do that Rolls-Royce combined option, there would be benefits both in terms of what we're talking about now, but certainly down the line in terms of reducing bills and leasehold service charges. So just wanted to make those couple of points.
Great, thanks, James. So Michelle has asked if if the solar panels will give a glare to flats that overlook them. Annalisa?
I don't think they're not that shiny, so I wouldn't imagine they would give much glare really to flats around. I wouldn't imagine that would be an issue, really.
Okay. Caroline has commented, I presume this is on the skylights. It would be nice to be able to open them in the summer, but security has been an issue in the past. Yeah. So this is about the skylight we're talking about, Annalisa.
One thing that you can get with the skylight replacements, you can get ones which have a kind of adjustable element to them, whether they're electric or whether they're manual, but they'd have a limiter, so they don't open fully, like they'd open 90 degrees so somebody could get in, but they would be enough to ventilate and get fresh air. So it depends on the product we pick.
Okay.
Just one point that James actually just raised in the chat on the solar panels, which is a very good point, is that they're facing kind of away from Camelford Walk because they're facing south. So actually the angle of them would mean that you wouldn't be able to get any glare off them, even if you had some glare.
Great. Okay. Any questions from anyone else? Is that everyone covered? Ian?
I was just going to reiterate your earlier plea for help, and that's really a plea for help from me, really. To be able to undertake the works, I've got to be persuaded that we can add all this additional load to the roof, and for that I need to know what's there already. At the moment, I've got a drawing from the 1970s that shows what might be there, and we don't know whether that drawing was before the building was designed or after it was built. And so we make a series of assumptions as to what exactly is there, but we need to be able to see what exactly is in the roof to be able to validate those assumptions so that we can justify the increase in load. So it's really, really important that we get access into the roof space so we can see the timbers, check exactly what centres they're at and what condition they're in. We're bringing an expert from a specialist timber survey company to check those with us, but we really do need to be able to get that access, be able to get this agreed. So your help would be very, very much appreciated.
Okay. Rebecca, is this about the structure survey? What would that involve?
Yeah, no, I just thought maybe Ian could say what you actually need access to and how that would work.
So the way it works is that timber is graded visually in the UK, and there's a standard for exactly how that is done. And a suitably qualified inspector of those timbers can make a judgment on the strength using a visual grading system that relies on visual access to 3 sides of the timber. So they need to be able to see the 2 flat, long faces of the timber beam and the short face on the bottom of the timber beam. And to be able to make an estimate for the whole roof, what we say is we don't need to see everything, but we need to see a reasonable sample. And so we need to be able to see a few of those timber beams. And because we also want to make sure that the load is safely carried from where it is applied to the walls of the building, we want to be able to see the end of the beams as well to make sure the connection between those beams and the walls is strong enough to take the additional load. So the reality of that is that we would need to remove the plasterboard from the ceiling in the room that's immediately underneath the roof, so that we can see a reasonable proportion of some of the timber beams and inspect the connections at the end. So it's a case of removing the plasterboard. Somebody comes in, and that inspection it's a visual inspection. So there's no cutting of timbers or sawing or drilling and that kind of thing. It's very, very light touch, just to be able to get an assessment for the strength of the timber. And then I believe that RBKC have a team that will then reinstate the ceiling in the room back to its original or better condition.
Okay. Thanks, Ian. Any further questions or comments or thoughts or ideas? No? Okay, thank you very much, Annalise and Simon. That was really useful, to run through the different options and, great opportunity for everyone to ask questions as well. I think we can move on to the next slide. Okay, so each household will have a chance to vote on the proposals. You will be asked to rank the 4 options in order of preference, one roof being one option, the green roof, warm roof with solar panels, as well as a green roof with solar panels. So you'll be able to cast your vote online, by post, or in a ballot box. So the details of the voting process will be provided in a leaflet, which will go out at the end of by the end of the week. But if you have any questions about the options or questions about the voting process, do contact the Lanc West team. Next slide, please. Yes, so if you'd like to volunteer to be a block rep, we'd like to hear from you. So block reps act as an important link between residents and the Lanc West team, as well as the IRAs. It's really an opportunity to represent the views of residents in your block so that their views are included in the decision-making process. And as James mentioned earlier, one of our key priorities is to co-design with you. So if you'd like to volunteer, do get in touch, or you can email me. Yeah, next, is it? Thanks, Linda. Next slide, please. So we've launched an e-news letter for residents. I believe it was launched in October to keep you up to date on all refurbishment news on the estate. To sign up, you can scan either the QR code on the screen now, or follow the link in the chat, which I believe Rebecca's she's put in the chat. And there are also posters on all notice boards with QR code. So when you sign up, you have the option of putting the block you live in, and this is really useful because we're looking to to publish block specific newsletters in the future. But if you do have any questions about this presentation today, about the different options, about the voting process, do get in touch with the Lanc West team. I believe we've come to the end. Is there anything else in the chat? Okay, I believe. Okay. Great. Okay, thanks, Linda. So, Evie? No? Okay.
Yeah,
So,
just Sorry.
Yeah,
It's
carry
just
on.
quickly actually on the volunteers. We have one volunteer already. We're going to be doing that survey next week, which we're quite looking forward to seeing what's underneath, I think. But if there is anybody else who would like to volunteer, just let us know as soon as you can, and we can start talking to you about what we can do.
Great. Thanks, Evie. So thanks all for joining us today. And as I said earlier, if you have any questions, and we'll be in touch about how you can vote, on the different options. But if you have any questions, do get in touch. Thank you all, and have a nice evening. Okay.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you. Thanks
Thank you,
everyone.
everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.